Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to get comfortable and listen in on candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. Tune in as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learned along the way. These conversations aim to inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination. Reclaim your power, strength, and vulnerability. Stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life you dream to live. Hello, everybody. Annie here. I'm so excited to have you join us on the podcast today. We are going to have a great time today because we're going to be talking to Ashton Rodenhiser, who is going to talk us through the whole world of doodling and art. And I'm so excited. She's a queen at unleashing creativity in those that she works with, and hopefully us today, because I'm one who just loves the whole concept of being more creative. And I kind of balk at it a little bit, because I was told earlier on in my life that I wasn't creative and how that can stuff you up. Anyway, as the founder of Mind's Eye Creative Consulting, Ashton's passion for helping people articulate their ideas converges beautifully with her creativity, and she's going to help us unpack that. So get armed with your little marker pens if you like. Start doodling even while we're listening in, wherever you're listening on our podcast platforms. If you're watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn Live, it doesn't matter. She's the master of graphic recording and facilitation, which means turning your ideas into captivating visuals that can really transcend the spoken word if you get it right. So welcome to the program, Ashton.
I am so happy to be here. Can you please come with me wherever I go and just pump me up? I'm going to keep you in my pocket when I just need a little. I'm loving the energy, and it makes me feel like I'm a lot fancier than I actually feel most days. So I appreciate it.
Welcome. You're most welcome. So let's dive into this whole world of doodling, which you see as a real hidden power. And I must admit, I often feel a bit nervous if I do a little doodle. I kind of critique myself instantly.
Yeah.
But then for other people, it's seen as a very simple act. So let's have a little talk about, can you share more about how you believe doodling transforms simple processes and why you think we should all doodle a little bit more?
Yeah, I see doodling as this beautiful stepping stone in our creativity, because we tend not to put a lot of pressure on a doodle, right? If I said to you, doodle something or draw something, which one feels like, oh, maybe I could do that?
Go for
I
the
guess
doodle.
you're going to say is doodle, unless you're an artsy person. And grew up drawing and you draw a lot, and, maybe you would choose that. But most people who haven't, been infused in their creativity in that way as an adult, then, doodling is a bit more of okay, I can wrap my head around, I can get behind the idea that I could doodle something, right? And the doodle doesn't have to be precious. I also, from a philosophical perspective, drawing doesn't have to be precious. We can talk about that later, but doodling in its own right, you can doodle something and throw it away, and people usually don't feel anything about that, right?
Yes.
Or there's no pressure to have to capture and draw, doodle something that's, really important, A lot of times we just do it without thinking. And I think that is the way that it's a beautiful stepping stone to other forms of creativity, including using drawing as a thinking tool, right? So doodling has just gotten a lot of definitely a bad rap. It's gotten a lot of negativity. And, people will get caught, or get in trouble for doodling when they were younger, but it's actually doing the opposite of what you got in trouble for. People think doodling is a way to keep you to be a distraction, It's actually doing
Yes.
the opposite. It's actually helping you stay focused, right? There is
Isn't
like
that such an
science
interesting?
behind that. It can help you retain up to 29% more information, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I love to work with people around helping them take something like doodling and drawing to help them break down complex ideas, I see doodling is just like a beautiful stepping stone to like other forms and layers of creative expression and ways that
Mm.
we can use creativity to like help us in some way. And my love is around like learning, comprehension, memory retention, and complexity. That's how I like to use doodling and drawing and creativity.
And I think so many people would feel more comfortable with their drawing when they don't have that pressure on them, sketching something
Absolutely.
out. I know for myself, actually, even when I've been sort of creating, brainstorming business ideas and so forth, I've often sort of, sorry about that. We're having some little internet issues here.
That's okay.
So often I've gone and sketched it out, and then someone goes and says, "Oh, you could, draw it," and I'm instantly going, "Oh!" And it's so funny because it is a drawing, but somewhere in me there's a divide there. When I felt like I was doodling or just like doing a bit of a sketch, I'm feeling really comfortable. When I felt like I had to make it sort of a bit more perfect or whatever, I instantly went, "Oh no, someone else would have to do that for myself."
Yeah.
Whereas it's so good, I love it when you get the clarity of that, artwork, if you like, rather than all the words that are required. If you're looking at like a mission statement or a vision or a strategic plan, whereas you can kind of go, there's 3 circles, there's 3 areas, and this is how it
Yeah.
works, or
Yeah.
whatever. So you went from a love of doodling, knowing that people need to do this so much more, but then you went and decided to create a business, right? You didn't
Mhm.
have the formal steps of education, so it was pretty bold. It was pretty bold,
Just
right?
a little bit, yeah.
Out there. Not everyone goes and says, "I'm going to do the whole." Hang on. Sorry about this. We are having so
That's
many
okay.
internet issues. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to just change to a hotspot, and then I can trim this because this is not working. My husband's just gone on a webinar at the same time, and I have a.
Of course. It's all good.
All right. Are you there?
Yeah.
All righty. Let's try. Let's just try a couple.
Okay.
Otherwise, I apologize. I
No,
apologize.
we're all
Right.
good.
Rejig. Where was I up to? Starting business. All righty.
Yes.
So you chose to leap in there and start a
Mhm.
business. You weren't
Yeah.
trained in business. You decided, you know what? I love doodling. I think more people should get more creative. It's a great way of self-expression, but also to be able to see things clearly if you're not really
Mhm.
wordy. People see things in pictures, whether it's you as the business owner, if it's the consumer. But how did you go about that? Was there a pivotal
Mhm.
moment that you went, you know what? I think this is so great. I'm going to have to back myself to do this.
Yeah. It's kind of like one of those jobs or careers or passions that people just don't hire internal staff for this kind of thing. So the majority of us in this field, you're kind of defaulted into starting a business. So I think part of me was like, oh, well, maybe this would be kind of interesting to work for myself and what would that look like? But then part of me was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to. If I want to do this work, I'm going to have to start a business. Like there was really kind of no option in that way because yeah, very few agencies out there are like hire for these types of internal positions. So I think there's like a little bit of that like kind of forced into it. But then
Mhm.
also I decided to go to there's an association for people who do this type of work, And I went to one of the conferences in 2015. And at that point, it was about 2 years of me like playing around. Like I had, was just about to have my second child. And, I was just sort of playing around, and I would, do a little bit here and there, but it was very kind of still very hobby-ish. And
Yeah.
so I went to that conference, and like, I'm a very like goal-oriented person, and I have to like create like, it's weird because like my friends and family and people around me kind of make fun that I'm like this very arts and creative side, but then very like analytical, like processes and stuff side, right? So
Interesting
it's
combination.
like this
Yes.
weird, like people like tell me I'm always like sliding up and down the scale. Anyways, so I went to this conference saying, okay, I'm going to make a decision at the end of this thing. I want to know, am I going to start a business or not?
Mm.
Right. So I went with the intention to try to soak up and have conversations with people who were in business for themselves. And what did that look like? And obviously, the answer to what happened at the end of that conference. I really had a hard time channeling the intimidation into inspiration, but I knew I had to in order to convince myself that I could do it for myself, because
Mm.
instead of saying, oh, well, yeah, well, they live in New York City. Of course they could do it, or they've been doing it for 20 years. Of course they can do it, but I can't. I really had to work really hard during that event and afterwards to be like, but 20 years ago, it wasn't as big as it is now. And, they had to do all the things that I have to do now to get yourself in front of people. And what does that look like? So I really try to channel that into being inspired by people that I saw that were really doing well and making a go of it. And yeah, so it was kind of like a combination of attending that conference, getting like a few little insights and skills and thinking around stuff. And then after I had my second child, about 6 months to a year after that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a
Now,
good try. I'm gonna, really try to figure this out. And then the next year, that kind of everything changed after that.
how fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations, because it really is hard. There are moments that it's so easy to go, oh, don't bother,
Yeah.
whereas you really want it to push through. It's easy to be looking at other people going, they've got it easier or whatever, whereas you've just got to do your own thing. Now, part of this process, though, is yourself becoming visible. And I know you shared with me before that you actually had a fear of that,
Oh my
which is
goodness.
really
Yeah.
hard when you go into business. And here you are, doodling, creating, working very much behind the scenes. You've also now shared that you're very process driven. So it's all very
Mhm.
behind the scenes thing. But as a new business, you've got to become visible. You've got to be comfortable. Here you are on the show today, being comfortable,
Yeah. Yeah.
being the face of that business. How did you approach that process? For those listening in who go, yep, that's one of my big blocks. How did you get around that?
This is definitely still something I'm working with. And that's why I kind of trying to put myself out there to have conversations with people like you around this type of thing. And yeah, so I have been doing this work for 10 years.
Mm.
So, and I've been building a business really intentionally for about 8. And I have spent the majority of that time hiding behind my work, right?
Mm.
So when I'm at an event in person, I'd have my giant paper on the wall with the illustration. Someone would come to take a picture and they go, no, no, we want you in the picture. And I'm like, no, no, take a picture of that illustration because it's your wisdom that I drew. It has nothing to do with me, right? Trying to be like extra humble about it, right?
Wow.
And I really would love having conversations with people who come up to me. And then, of course, when I pivoted online in 2020, still do a lot of it online. People message me, and I love having conversations with people, but I would never really put my face out there. So
Yeah.
I kind of like laugh when I would go to in-person events. Like I was at an in-person event just a few months ago, and it's fun at lunchtime to go and like just sort of stand by people and be like, hi. And they're like, oh, what do you do? Because they assume you're with the industry that you're drawing. And you're like, no, I don't know anybody here. I'm the person on the screen that's doing the drawing. And they're like, oh my goodness. And then they have a million questions for me.
Yeah.
But, there's getting comfortable with just speaking about what it is that I do is like a whole other thing. Like, it's just so much easier. And that's why I did it for so long. It's just like hide behind my work and really, like, on social and stuff, I would never show my face because I'm like, nobody wants to see me. They want to see like the illustration. Like, isn't that more important? Like, that's what you're going to hire me for. You don't want to see little old me,
But they actually do. This is the big thing. It's a surprise to, true artists. You're going, aren't you focused on the art? But they want to know where that art comes from. They also want to know your story. They want to feel your passion. They want to know if they connect with you. Even everyone who comes on this show meets me beforehand. I want to know, who is that person? So rather than just the topic, there's just so much more, this whole world of personal branding, which, I coach people on, but it is so important. And it's a hard concept for many people to grapple with. They go, but aren't they, I don't know why that's relevant, whereas it's so relevant.
I always I pride myself on like some of my characteristics that I think make me like people want to work with me. But it's usually not until I get to that point of like, we're on a call and I'm like, just being myself. It took me a couple years to feel comfortable, just like totally being myself on like a call. Be like, hey, I'm going to do this for you and it's going to be great. We're going to have a good time and your people are going to engage and it's going to be great. And we're going to do it, and that's fine. I feel okay in that space. For the last couple of years, I've become more comfortable in that space. And you get to a point, I think, where you believe in your work so much that you kind of like rejection it just sort of pings off of you because you think, oh, well, if they don't hire you, that's like really unfortunate for them. Like, because you could totally help their event or their meeting be like totally amazing. And if they can't see that, or if they don't want to put the dollars behind it, like that's unfortunate. Right. So like you can get to, and you only get that level of confidence by getting rejected, by showing up and doing the work and being amazing and getting results for your clients and stuff. Right. But putting yourself out there from a visibility perspective outside of that space, I think for me anyways, has been a very like completely different shift. So I've really had to, I kind of say that I sort of spent 2023 just being playful or trying to be playful and experiment this visibility. What does that look like? And so putting myself out there a little bit more, posting more with my face on it, sharing some of my opinions, and things like that. So, I was on a podcast last year and they posted a reel of a clip and it totally went viral. Has like 2 million views on it. And all the comments are all negative. Like all of them, like almost all of them, like tens of thousands of negative comments. And I think it's something that I like secretly feared, but then it happened and I was like, oh, I don't really care. Like they can have tens of thousands of negative comments. Like I stand by what I said. It's just an opinion and you don't have to agree with it. So I think like by having these like funny little experiences while in this process of trying to be visible, and you realize like some of those things that maybe you secretly feared aren't as bad as they could have been, or they didn't affect you in the same way. Or if you can choose, if they start to affect you, you're like, I'm going to let this affect me as much as possible.
Part of that journey is rising above that, and anyone who's successful, they'll get trolls, they'll get haters, they'll get people who don't like it. And it's getting to that level of just going, that's okay. I'm doing me. I'm obviously not your flavor. You go and find your own flavor. And it's just being comfortable that you don't have to be all things to all people. Right. And that's a real, it's just such a refreshing stage when you get to that. It's just like, I don't have to worry. It's like, that's right. If a million people don't like that, that's okay. That's right. It's just my opinion. Other people will. That's all right. Now, I know one of the fundamental aspects of your philosophy in life is creativity. You believe that all people are creative. And I love this topic. But how
Mhm.
do you instill that belief in others? Because it's so hard, you've got to believe it to achieve it. And most of us have been, sort of a little bit wounded or don't feel that we are as creative as we want to be.
Mhm.
People put negative words into our head. We might have had some experiences that we just felt humiliated or shame because of something we drew or whatever. How do you go about instilling that true belief that everyone is creative?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought this back up because you mentioned it very kind of just a tiny bit a little while ago, and you just brought it up again. And I think we have to recognize that, and that everybody, or the majority, I shouldn't say everybody, the majority of people who
Mm.
say in their mind, I am not creative, was
Yes.
because they had someone that told them that they were not. And for
Yes.
some reason, we took that as truth, right? That's how beliefs are formed, right? I remember mine, my grade 4 teacher, I was painting. She told me I was painting wrong. And I remember as like bright as day, that little, I just went, oh, I'm not creative. It was just
Yes.
like a little, it was like the tiniest but biggest switch that just, and I had so many other opportunities in my life, like to be creative. And my mom did toll painting in the 90s. And if anybody remembers that, painting on wood, that was like a big thing here in Canada, at least. It was like a big
Yeah.
thing. Right. And my mom would crochet all night, like I was around some creativity, not a ton, but a bit. And I let this little teacher, for some reason, switch this little switch in my mind that said, Ashton equals not creative. And whether or not you can remember that experience, I guarantee you probably had one, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't an art form, but maybe it was that joke's not funny, or
Mm.
maybe that story's not written well, or it could be something that's not necessarily considered a stereotypical creative thing, but has
Mm.
creativity in it, right?
Mm.
So, we have these beliefs because of experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I think ultimately the first step is just recognizing that you have a belief that's not true,
Mm.
right? That belief happened to you. It came into your mind. You believed it for a reason, whether or not it was a little comment like mine or something that was instilled. We're not a creative family, like things like that, right? So I think you just kind of have to own the fact that this was a belief that you can rewrite and rewire in your brain, that you are creative, because we all are innately creative, is what I believe in, right? It might not look like I said, a stereotypical creativity. It doesn't mean that it's like visual art. When we think of creativity, unfortunately, most of us think about visual art. And I also just happen to be in kind of the visual art space, but I actually have more like formal training. Like I don't have any formal training in art, but I do in music, right?
Mm.
But I do music more for fun, but I do visual art as work. And but yours could be telling stories. It could be you're really funny. Like there's things that we can bring to
Mm.
a table or to a conversation where we can infuse our ideas through whatever creative lens that feels right for us. And maybe that might be you might have to go on like a little creative journey and
Mm.
try things out, because maybe you never had an opportunity to foster any creativity because that was squashed so early on, right? So you might
Mm.
have to go on a little journey of like, what does creativity mean for me, right?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be visual. It doesn't have to be, something like that, but it could be something that's uniquely your creativity. And what does that look like? Yeah.
Mm. Oh, I love having this conversation because definitely I was held back a lot in my younger years because we were told we're not a creative family.
There
And
you
I'm
go.
watching
Yeah.
this whole concept of, all people are creative. I totally agree with that, and it took me a long time to really unpack that. It was actually one day when my husband went, wow, you're very creative for a non-creative person. And he joked with me. I went, oh my gosh, do you think I'm creative? He's like, oh my gosh, like there's a million examples, but you just have this view
Yeah.
so damaging. And I'm currently minding, because we're on school holidays here, and my granddaughters are 2 and 6, and I'm just loving this opportunity that they sit there at the Nana creates this art table for them, and they're like, let's create this, and you can create anything out of anything. And sometimes it's like they'll go, it's not very good, but I know what it is, so it doesn't matter. And they'll say these phrases. I'm like, how wonderful that is. I go, it doesn't matter. You can make it anything you like. And so creating this environment that they can just be reaffirmed that, it doesn't have to be brilliant first up. It's actually that we're having fun. It's, we're extending our skills. It's like, it's just time together. I also love the other examples that you've given about, that's right, it doesn't just have to be a crafty artist. I'll even say I'm creative in business. I get business like strategic is very creative, because you're getting new ideas. You're allowing yourself to drift off and daydream and get very left field of things that have maybe been done before. People will say, oh, well, that's been done before. And I'll go, yeah, but has it been done this way? Or has it been, well, that was a different time. Maybe it works in a different context, which is, these concepts are very, very, fluid and dynamic, and they work in different settings. Now, visibility also comes with a lot of challenges. So we talked about how before, when you can get embarrassed or you can get rejected, we can celebrate successes. But how do you go about really showcasing your successes now to inspire? While I think you mentioned the word before, humble. You like to sort of stay humble. Which is a real art. You don't want to go, oh my gosh, like some people will always feel like you don't want to come across, I'm the best. But you want to go as a business owner, that's right. I will help you turn your ideas into visual storyboards. I will help you by being an illustrator in a book. I will help you have people get attracted to what you're doing in the in a visual sense because of your business creativity. So how do you go about that while still going, yeah, but I don't want to be that person that everyone kind of, feels uncomfortable with, or you feel uncomfortable with yourself? How do you approach that whole concept?
Well, I definitely feel like I'm still playing in the playground of this and experimenting. I definitely don't have it all figured out. That's for sure. But I think I just keep leaning in on, it's still not about me. I can be visible and I can be speaking about something, but not make it the Ashton show, right? Be like, I just completed this and it was amazing. Like, no one cares about that. Like when real estate agents, I just sold a house. Like, no one's gonna go to you because you just that's all you do is tell people you sold. And I can say this because my dad's a realtor, so I can poke fun a little bit, So it's like you can be visible. Like, these are things that I'm learning, right? So you can be visible and talk about things without being like, oh, I did this drawing, look at it. Or I did, you know what I mean? So you can talk about like this amazing result you got for a client and their experience.
Your dad helped that person get their dream home.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, oh my gosh, look at this. Here's a picture of them standing in front of their new home. Like, it was so great to work with you. And, I don't know, like, let's swim in the lake sometime this summer. Like, you could tell a story about it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like a brag show of what it is that you're doing. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't provide any value to a reader or to someone scrolling LinkedIn or whatever. I almost feel like I've spent like the last little while just sort of like auditing, like, what posts seem to do well. Like, people are very visible, but they're not bragging and they're not like, I'm kind of curious. I've just been very in like a curious space around that. I'm like, what's my opinion about this topic? And would I feel comfortable sharing this opinion backed by something it is that maybe I had done in the past? But I don't know. I think we have to think about what it is that we're sharing and why is it that we're sharing it. Yeah. Right. I feel like I don't really do a lot of like credibility stuff. Like, I think I've fallen into that in the past, but I'm less about that recently. It's like, I don't really need to post someone to tell them that I'm great. and they could hire me, because that's not what's going to get someone to like work with me.
It's going to be that you were delighted that you were able to help this person create something or other that had an impact that is measurable or exciting, that someone else says, hey, I want that. I want what Ashton can help to make happen. Totally. That whole self-talk, that negative self-talk narrative, I can hear you're still on a journey, right? It's still a journey that you're overcoming. And how is that helping you then become a better businesswoman, though, as you keep, you're 10 years in, but it's still areas that you go, no, I'm leaning into this, confident, accomplished businesswoman, because I know I add value to other people. How's that actually helping you become a better businesswoman?
I think I wouldn't be having this conversation with you if I wasn't stretching myself.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I think with the pandemic and all of the things, and just sort of like being in a mode of a little bit maybe of scarcity, of like, I need to try to keep this up and I don't want to lose things. Like, I think I got to a point where I was like, okay, I feel settled now. Like, history has shown me I can make it through a pandemic. I could make it through anything, So I wouldn't be having this conversation with you if I wasn't stretching and growing an aspect of my work, which is something that I'm doing, and I had started last year, right? Into more of a, I will teach you how to do this.
Yes.
Right. So, there's so I've had to kind of, I've worked really, really hard on my mindset, right? And my thinking. And I tell people sometimes that I spent more time in the beginning working on my thinking than my actual craft. Because like, I could not get out of my own head around how I could actually do this thing. Right. So I had to, like, I watched all the documentaries, read all the books like multiple times, and I still read the same ones and find new ones. Right. But I had to, like, from a mindset perspective, I'm still in that process of, like, okay, I got myself convinced and obviously like successful in this way in my business. Now, for some reason in my mind, it's very different. It's a different amount of visibility, right? It's like, oh, don't just hire me to do this, but I'll teach you how to do it for yourself.
Yes.
Right. So it's a little bit like I have to be more visible. I'm kind of like, I was sort of forced into it last year, right? To be considered more of like a quote unquote thought leader in this space. Right. So even just saying the word thought leader still makes me get a little, I don't know how I feel about that. Right. But then you like start to learn things as you're putting, like, I published a book last year, and I realized publishing a book's not that hard. Like, there's things that you put on these pedestals, and then once you do them, you realize they're not as hard as everyone makes them seem like my house owns a business, and him and I are always talking like, people always, think starting a business is hard, and it's actually not that hard. These things, when you haven't done them before, seem really difficult, right? And so that's sort of where, I don't even know what your original question was. I'm just talking now, but maybe I'm getting to the point and I don't even know it. But I think, like, for me, I'm just still on this journey of like, changing my mindset. Like, I got myself to a point in this business where I can do the work and I believe in it and I get, value for my clients and all as well. But now I'm like, okay, can I also do it in this way? And what does that look like? And it's just it's like unveiling of a certain aspect, which then the visibility comes as more of like I'm sort of more like forced into it because I want to grow in this space. Yeah.
And we started by, I was asking you about overcoming negative self-talk. And so in that journey, I love that 10-year journey, because it's gone from overcoming negative self-talk, and that'll always pop in at times, but it reduces, to then really, after 10 years, becoming that master of a craft. And with that, usually gets to that stage where you want to start educating others. So I love that you've got to that stage in your businesses now. It's like, I could do that for me. You can consult and I will create something for you, draw something for you, but you're actually bringing more. I can feel the joy is actually coming through that education space to be able to say, hey, I want to actually encourage you, support you, train you so that you can flourish more, right? Because
Yeah.
that changes their life. It gives them more skills and they become more part of it. They get that
Mhm.
authenticity. Absolutely love that. And so for our listeners today, that's been a really valuable, I think, gold nugget for you. I always love to have a gold nugget every episode. And we've had a number of them today with you, Ashton. But I think going through that stage, what are the learnings from this conversation is that we all have negative self-talk. We all have gifts. We are all creative. We have opportunities to be able to really, look at the evidence and start exploring things without that self-critique and be able to just
Mhm.
enjoy it, explore things, and then be able to get to a stage in our business that you go, yeah, that's right. I'm comfortable. I'm happy with what I am. I don't have to have everybody loving every part of it.
Mhm.
But if it adds value to others, then reach out to me. And then that must be your joy now. So now, what would you focus more on in your business? Is it that you illustrate things for other people, that you make that happen from a consulting perspective, or is it that you're actually leaning more into educating others and taking them on their journey?
Yeah, I'm definitely is like my priority for this year is to really go all in on the education and like see how it goes.
Yeah.
I started playing in this space last year and, started really building a beautiful community of people. And it's been very validating for me in this space. So I sort of over the holidays, a little bit before and after, sort of going through this bit of a revamp of how it is that I want to show up and build community in this space. So I want to be a leader as an educator, as someone knowledgeable to teach people how to visualize information, break down complexity, or use it however they want to, whether it's like in meetings or in the classroom or whatever. Um, but doing it in a collective way, right?
Mm,
Where I don't always have to be the expert in the room.
mm,
I love that people come to me with questions in the community and I can answer them. That makes me feel good that I'm like, oh, maybe I do know things, which is very validating. But, I also learned in this space where like I like being a conduit for learning this as well. And it doesn't have to always be me in the front of a virtual room saying, this is how you could do it. Right. So, yeah, it's sort of like an education blended with community building
yeah,
around this, right? And I love like I think because I'm really like true an educator at heart. Like I think I could have been like that was one of the paths I
teacher.
considered was being a teacher. And then I found facilitation and in facilitation you're really about helping build and bring connections
Yeah,
with other people in a room, right? And so I really want to have this like blend of education but also community building where people can learn from me and I would love to do that, but we can all like learn from each other and yeah, like how people can like different industries and how someone from this industry might be able to help someone from this industry and just that like cross and intergenerational learning and collaboration. Very excited about that.
uh,
I think for me, that's where I see like community building moving forward in these types of spaces and less about someone being like an expert in front of the room saying all those things and more of like a collaborative
yeah,
collection of community building. So I'm excited to see where this goes this year and I know that my community is going to direct where it goes too. Like I'm kind of going in trying to put things out there and see what people love and then follow that path, right?
uh,
Because I can't say, oh, this is what I'm going to teach when I don't even know if that's what people want to learn. Right. So it
exactly.
wasn't until after I published my book that I'm like, oh my goodness, I missed all these things, even though I did beta reading and everything. Like it took like a year and a half of beta reading. I
Mm,
still at the end, put it out there and having conversations with people because it's a beginner's guide, having conversations with beginners. I'm like, oh, darn, I missed some
mhm.
pieces, but now I
Exactly.
have the opportunity to incorporate these new learnings and lessons within the community space. So I'm very excited to see where this goes, but it's like, being a community builder like that's where a lot of that visibility, not just the education, but the community building piece, that's where that visibility is like going to be incredibly important for me this year. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been such a great conversation for all of you. I'm looking forward to how Ashton's year plays out. It's going to be amazing. And I think that's a good reminder for ourselves to get over ourselves, get into our potential clients. You know, what are they needing? How can we be of value to them, and be comfortable to actually just shift your business a little bit in response to that. Go with the flow, enjoy. You've mentioned the word play a number of times over this session, and I love that language. It's like, yeah, just play around with it. You know, there's no right and wrong of it. It's just what works, and being comfortable with that. So great episode. Thank you for those of you who have been listening in. Make sure you pop your chats, your comments in the chat. We would love to get back to you. We would love to connect with you. If you're wanting to be on the show, reach out to me personally. I always love just representing the breadth of women. So many amazing women from around the globe being on Women's Biz Podcast. It is just been so encouraging for me over the last year. I'm super pumped about all of the ladies that I'm going to introduce you to over the coming year. How exciting is that? And I obviously love you to support all of them. If they resonate with you, reach out to them, ask them some questions, go and check them out. It's been great having you on the show today. All the best, Ashton. And to our listeners, I look forward to another episode with you next week. See you then. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, pop on over to womensbizglobal.com, where you can find out how our coaching, media and publishing opportunities are helping women just like you to become and be seen as the trusted authorities in their niche. Inquire today and start reining in the abundance you desire.